it's Allison. This is not going to be a Bible study, but instead I'm actually going to be sharing my testimony with y'all today. The reason why I'm doing this is number one, because I feel called, but number two, why do I feel called? Well, coming from somebody who once drifted very, very far from God, I want to let somebody else know that may be in my shoes or that comes from brokenness that God never leaves you. Like, period. God never leaves you throughout any circumstance, and at any given time, you can come back to God, but with that is going to require sacrifice. So starting off, ever since I was little, I grew up Christian, but I didn't grow up in the church necessarily, like consistently. I have gone whenever I was younger a couple times, but I didn't go every single day. And I was actually baptized as like a itty bitty baby, but I feel like the difference between being baptized when you're young and then making a decision on your own is very different, because whenever you're young, you don't really understand the importance and it's not really your own decision making. My parents made that decision for me, which I'm not necessarily saying it was bad, but now that I made that decision by myself, it's very different now that I understand the significance of it. So the first house that me and my family ever owned and stayed in, I was there like from the time whenever I was born until kindergarten. And the reason why we left that house was because of financial and job situations. And that's where things kind of got rocky for us. But luckily, God always provides a way. And we ended up moving in with my grandparents whenever I was going to start first grade. And we were there living with them for about 5 years. And in our time being there, my grandpa did go to church. So I kind of have like memory of us starting to go to church a little bit, and then we kind of stopped going. But I remember this one time that we went, and I actually started crying in the church. And it just felt pretty powerful. And I think I was in like 3rd or 4th grade. I don't know. But that kind of led me to want to seek God deeper, even though I was like very young. I started reading my Bible. I started to spend more time with him and pray and stuff. And I was actually doing pretty good for a while. I was young, but I did actually have TikTok downloaded. And I started to post about Jesus, and I was trying to share the gospel back then. But I also ended up getting bullied for that in school. The reason why, I don't know. Kids are just immature, and whenever you're young, like, it's hard not to listen to kids around you. And I was one of those kids that didn't really stand up for myself. So, yeah. But then also not only that, I actually did start to get like bullied in 4th grade as well. And that like kind of opened the route to insecurity. And I started to look at myself differently. And it was just a hard time for me, like honestly. And all I remember after that is drifting into the world and drifting away from God. And I remember I stopped reading my Bible. I stopped praying consistently. I don't really remember much of me in 5th grade. But for 6th grade, I did end up moving to a new school. And I still was very shy. And I've never been the type, like when I was young, I never was a type to stand up for myself, like I said. So I would just kind of take a bunch of crap that kids would throw at me. And yeah. And then I would also always try to like fit in with other people and not be myself. But even with like trying to fit in, I never felt like I actually fit in either way. I've always struggled with like overthinking and anxiety and all that. And with that also came like me worrying about my looks and stuff. And then 7th grade came. I was still lost. I was still trying to fit in, trying to find myself. I went through a lot of different phases, if that makes sense. And I didn't really have healthy relationships around me. Then the summer going into 8th grade, I kind of started to become depressed. And then during 8th grade, I started to self-harm. I know most people I've met my age have been like, oh my gosh, 8th grade was like the best year for me. For me, it was probably one of the worst years. I also wore tons of makeup. The way I would dress was not cute at all. I thought it was cute, but it wasn't. I started to also struggle with lust. Part of that also came from the way I would portray myself, because I was just rooted into something that I was not. And I know some of y'all might be like, oh, like that's normal, people go through that. No, like it was low-key bad. I did start to have suicidal thoughts, but I never actually like had the courage to actually, because I was scared. Really, I was just hurting on the inside. The reason why I would self-harm was because it was either like I was on the verge of feeling everything or nothing at the same time. So whenever I discovered what that was, it kind of helped me cope with what I was going through inside of my head. I kind of had this aesthetic of like trying to be baddie, trying to be cute, but also trying to be ratchet at the same time. I had a really bad blabbermouth. Like, I cursed a lot. Cursing has been something that I've struggled with for a minute. But back then, it was really, really bad. I've definitely made progress with that. And, also, like, being in a relationship with boys. But you're also, like, so young. I mean, I'm still young now, but I can definitely say that the relationships that I was in weren't genuine, and it wasn't real love. And I also talked about struggling with vanity in one of my last posts. But yeah, that's where vanity came from, because I was so worried about how I looked. And as y'all can see now, I don't usually wear a lot of makeup anymore. Sometimes I do. But for me to be comfortable with my bare face now, it's taken me a long time. Because before, let me tell you, back then it was like I could not leave the house without makeup. I could not go to the grocery store without makeup. Like, it was crazy. Which, like, if you like makeup, listen, that was just what I struggled with. But there's nothing wrong with wearing makeup. It was just, for me, I kind of found it like consuming me, and I wasn't happy with how I looked without it anymore. And I would always post myself. Like, I was one of those girls where if you scroll on Instagram and then you just see like post after post after post, and it's like every single day she posts herself, like that was me. And it was almost like every single day. Like, I just remembered I would post pictures of myself like in the mirror, or in a crop top, or like thirst traps, all of that, and like posting myself like looking in a lustful way. Like, you could just see it, okay? With like lustful music and bad rap music. I thought I was popping, but I wasn't. So that's when like all of that started, and then I kind of carried that with me. And in the summer before going into ninth grade, like I said, I carried all that stuff with me still. But I started to try to date girls. And let me just say, that was not who God ordained me to be. But I was also so desperate for love, number one. Number two, I was lost. And number three, I didn't really care about being disobedient to God. And I did get convicted of that even back then. But I was kind of on the verge of like trying to say that I was bisexual, which was not good for me. But the good thing was also that there was people in my life at the time that I was around that were like telling me that that was not right. So I did eventually end up leaving that behind fully. And I can say that I know now that God created me to be with one man for the rest of my life. I did end up struggling with self-harm a little bit again in ninth grade. Whenever like things got bad, I would resort to that sometimes. But I was blessed, and my mental health did get a lot better until the summer, like when ninth grade was over and then I was about to start 10th grade. This was whenever I was about to turn 15. It was a week before I had my quinceañera. There was a pretty big family incident that happened, and that ended up leaving me very like crushed and broken. But like I said, I've always been very blessed. God has never ever left me, and God made sure I always had somebody to help me get through that. But when it comes to like fully being healed, and now God has also helped me understand and to see what forgiveness actually looks like. But in that time, whenever everything was like very, very fresh, I was questioning God in that time, and I was like, okay, why did this have to happen? God, like, what are you doing? Am I ever gonna get over this? But God was still working throughout that whole time. And now throughout my whole life and everything I've gone through, it's led me back to God. Like, every single bit that he used, it was for a purpose. And now I see that it doesn't matter like the struggle that you're going through. God's never gonna leave or forsake you, even if it feels like things are hard. And it doesn't matter how much you've sinned, Jesus is still there with his arms open, waiting for you to return. And now I can say that I'm finally growing, I'm healing, and I'm learning what it looks like to love again. And I'm surrounded by good people.
Do you have 1 minute for God today? And if you don't, that's absolutely fine. But if you do, please can you tap the copy link button so then someone who really needs this video is more likely to find it. So today I just wanted to read one of my favourite Bible verses, which is Romans 7 verse 15, which reads, "I do not understand what I do, for I don't do what I would like to do, but instead I do what I hate." So the reason why I love this verse so much is because it's a verse that I think most, if not all, Christians can relate to. What they're talking about in this verse is the deep human natural struggle of temptation of sin, which, yes, I said natural because it's something that everybody falls into. You know, whether you're Christian, atheist, something else, it doesn't matter because everybody will fall into it at some point in their life. You know, it could be greed, it could be gluttony, it could be lust, it could be wrath. Everybody will fall into it, and people think, oh no, I just fell into this sin, I'm going to go to hell, or Jesus will never forgive me. But that's just simply not true, because the whole entire reason why Jesus was crucified is because he knew that at some point we would be falling into these sins, and once we did, we could ask for forgiveness, repent, and just not do it again. Anyway, sorry that was a bit sloppy, it's my first video, but that's all for today.
My dear friends, many people today are searching for signs of the times, wondering what the future holds. While the Bible encourages us to be watchful, it also reminds us to keep our focus on Christ rather than fear or speculation. Let every headline inspire us to pray more, love others more deeply, and live each day in faithful obedience to God. Our greatest calling is not to predict every event, but to remain ready by walking closely with Jesus. His promises are certain, and our hope is secure in Him. And once again, if you are going through something, you can leave your prayer requests in the comments below, and our prayer warriors will faithfully pray for you. God bless.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and I'll see you in our next video.